Have you ever wondered why the mausoleum of Qin Shihuang has been sealed off so strictly for decades? They say it's to preserve ancient artifacts, but the truth may be far more terrifying. Imagine this. What if the greatest emperor in Chinese history is not truly dead, but still sitting there, deep in the shadows of the underground palace after more than 2,000 years? This is not a mad hypothesis. It is a reality being deliberately concealed. Secret research has uncovered that inside the tomb there are not merely lifeless clay figures, but at least 10,000 living terracotta warriors. These are beings who endured an excruciating biological transformation. Through a mysterious elixir, their organic bodies were altered into an infinite state, one that completely halts aging and freezes time itself. But the price was unimaginably cruel. Their flesh dried and hardened like fired clay. They lost their hearing, their sense of taste, and nearly every human sensation, everything except their eyes, condemned to stare into centuries of silence. Worse still, they carry a lethal curse. A single ray of sunlight, or stepping beyond the underground palace, would cause their entire bodies to disintegrate instantly. This discovery shatters everything we thought we knew about history. The infamous event known as burning the books and burying the scholars alive was not born of Qin Shihuang's hatred of knowledge. It was a massive purge aimed at eliminating those who knew too much about the secret of immortality. Even his reported death and lavish funeral were nothing more than an elaborate performance, staged to deceive posterity and blind the world. To this very day, the emperor and his legion remain hidden beneath the earth, waiting for something we have yet to comprehend. Authorities claim the strict security is meant to protect cultural relics, but in truth, 'tis to prevent anyone from touching a secret that could shake the foundations of human understanding. Yet human greed is always the spark of catastrophe. Two brothers from a village near the mausoleum, desperate to change their fate, dared to dig where they should not have. By accident, they awakened something that should have slept forever. They uncovered a soldier statue so terrifyingly lifelike, still gripping its weapon as if ready for battle. They secretly brought it home, never realizing they had just invited death through their door. 2 days later, blood soaked that room, marking the beginning of a chain of horrors that no conventional force could ever explain. Welcome to Travel Story. If you have the patience to walk this road with us, subscribe because the episodes to come are not meant for the masses. Thank you, sincerely. Greed has always been the spark behind the most horrifying disasters. This story begins with that very recklessness. In a small village lying right on the edge of the mausoleum zone, two brothers, along with several cousins, dreamed of changing their lives overnight. Blinded by desperation, they decided to carry out a grave-robbing scheme. What they never imagined was that what they unearthed would not be gold or jewels, but a terracotta warrior ceramic. Life-sized, clad in Qin dynasty armor, hair bound in a high topknot, a razor-sharp weapon gripped tightly in its hand. The statue was so eerily realistic that anyone who looked at it felt a chill crawl down their spine. Convinced they had struck it rich, they triumphantly hauled the figure back to the house and turned the place into their temporary base. Soon after, the two brothers left the village to buy more digging tools. That was when tragedy struck. 2 days later, when they returned, a nightmare awaited them. Fresh blood splattered across the walls. The stench of iron hung thick in the air. The three relatives who had stayed behind were brutally murdered bodies, mutilated. Heads severed by impossibly clean sword strikes. Most terrifying of all, the multicolored statue they had brought home was gone. Paralyzed by fear and too terrified to report the crime, frayed their grave. Robbery would be exposed. The brothers fled back to the pit they had dug. There, the statue stood waiting, silent and unmoving, as if it had never left. In desperation, they made one final gamble, secretly transporting it into the nearby town to hide it. That night, the entire county descended into a living nightmare. In an era when phones were still rare, panicked villagers ran to the police station, screaming about a multicolored ceramic statue slaughtering people in the darkness. Survivors testified that the figure wielded a bronze sword, swinging it without emotion yet with terrifying precision. Police opened fire immediately. Bullets shattered its ceramic body, fragments exploding outward, black holes torn through its torso. But the statue did not slow down. It showed no pain. It vanished and reappeared in the darkness like a ghost until Unit 307 arrived. Led by Captain Lin Zun. Lin Zun approached the statue, which now stood motionless inside a tunnel. When he touched its ceramic surface, he felt only absolute cold, no warmth, no sign of life. The bronze sword at its side seemed fused to its body, impossible to draw. To test his theory, Lin ordered the statue moved to the village square and placed under guard. At 10 o'clock that night, just as exhaustion began to set in, Lin noticed something. One finger twitched. In the next instant, the once rigid bronze sword was drawn at a horrifying speed, slashing straight toward his throat. Lin barely dodged the wind-splitting strike on pure reflex. Gunfire from Unit 307 rained down, finally knocking the statue off balance. Yet even when only its head remained attached to its shoulders, it continued swinging the sword in a frenzy. It was only after Lin fired 3 shots, blasting the head into fragments, that the entity finally stopped moving. The case was officially announced as the work of a deranged serial killer who had disguised himself as a ceramic statuette explanation meant to calm the public. But 1 week later, as Lin Zun held a newspaper in his hands, he froze in shock, dropping his teacup onto the floor. The headlines were filled with reports of a new excavation. More than 6,000 terracotta warriors had been unearthed chests, identical in form and weaponry to the killer he had just destroyed. In that moment, Lin realized the truth. He had not killed a monster. He had awakened an army. A murderous entity made of ceramic was already a nightmare. But now imagine this. What if the threat was not one, but an entire legion of 6,000 such warriors? After destroying the multicolored statue in the county seat, Captain Lin Zun returned to Beijing with the shattered ceramic fragments, his mind heavy with unease. He believed the nightmare was finally over until 1 week later when he unfolded the morning newspaper. Spread across the pages were images of a massive excavation at the mausoleum of Qin Shihuang. Thousands of terracotta warriors filled the underground chambers. Infantry, archers, cavalry, even war chariots. What made Lin's blood run cold were their faces. Those ceramic visages were identical to the statue he had personally shot in the head. In that moment, he understood. This had never been an isolated case. He had brushed against a 1,000-year-old military secret that was beginning to awaken. Lin Zun immediately reported to his superiors. When the Supreme Commander of Unit 37 examined the blackened bullet holes in the recovered fragments, all doubt vanished. 2 elite subunits were deployed at once. The military sealed off the entire area, and the archaeological team was ordered to withdraw immediately under heavy escort. When Lin stepped into the underground palace, the reality before him was far more overwhelming than anything the media had described. 6,000 terracotta warriors stood in formation, solemn, imposing, radiating lethal intent. Yet Unit 307 operated with extreme caution. No one could justify destroying a cultural heritage of global significance without absolute proof that these figures truly could move. Lin decided on a direct field test. He and his team selected a statue wielding a long halberd, one that looked especially menacing, attempted to relocate it. The figure was unbearably heavy, icy cold, like a solid block of stone. But the tragedy struck before they had taken even 10 steps. Right before Lin's eyes, the ceramic warrior's eyes snapped open. A wave of killing intent flooded the air, freezing the blood in their veins. The rusted halberd suddenly carved a deadly arc at an unimaginable speed. One team member never even had time to register what was happening. He was cleaved in two on the spot. Gunfire thundered through the tomb as the unit poured bullets into the rampaging entity. Only when its head exploded into fragments did the ceramic body finally collapse. But the sound of gunfire seemed to trigger an ancient defensive mechanism. The entire underground chamber began to shake violently. From deep beneath the earth came a dull booming sound, like the war drums of a long-forgotten battlefield. Lin and his team stood frozen in horror as all 6,000 terracotta warriors began to tremble. Cracks spread across their ceramic shells. Thousands of eyes opened at once, locking onto the intruders. Archers raised their bows, or chariots lurched forward. Thousands of bronze arrowheads aligned, all aimed at Unit 37. In that moment, when 1,000 modern soldiers faced 6,000 ancient engines of war, the distance between life and death was measured in heartbeats. Just as the tension reached its breaking point, a figure stepped out from the ranks. A statue clad in heavy armor, bearing the presence of a great general, advanced alone. He did not attack. Instead, he stopped before Li Qi, commander of Subunit 8. With an ancient gesture of cupped hands, the ceramic general bowed. Then he spoke. The voice was deep, resonant, and commanding, so much so that everyone present stood stunned. The general declared that their emperor wished to meet the one in charge. It was an invitation that could not be refused. Behind him stood an army ready to annihilate everything in its path. And so, Li Qi, with the resolve of a true soldier, chose to step deeper into the underground palace to come face to face with an emperor who had been sleeping for 2,000 years. Li Qi's footsteps echoed through the suffocating silence of the underground palace, where an entirely different world unfolded before him, one so surreal it left him shaken to the core. Above his head was not a barren stone ceiling, but a dazzling night sky, inlaid with 5-colored jade and agate, glowing softly as if reality and dream were melting into one. Gigantic murals stretched across the walls, recounting the legendary campaigns of the greatest emperor in Chinese history, guiding Li Qi toward a majestic palace hall. At its center stood a radiant dragon throne cast from pure gold, and seated upon it was Ying Zhang. Before Li Qi could even steady himself, the emperor spoke. His voice was deep and absolute, heavy with authorities so powerful that the air itself seemed to freeze. He said it was unexpected to meet the descendant of an old acquaintance on such a day. A cup of millennium-old wine was brought forth. Li Qi closed his eyes and drank it in one breath, tasting a gentle sweetness and a rich, lingering aroma, something no modern human could ever have experienced. But then came the emperor's sigh, and with it an ancient sorrow that weighed down the entire chamber. He said that no matter how exquisite the wine, to him it was no different from plain water. For over 2,000 years he had lost his sense of taste, his sense of touch, everything, leaving only an empty existence trapped within a body of stone and ceramic. Li Qi was stunned when the emperor calmly identified him as a direct descendant of Li Xi, a secret so deeply buried that even the most classified files of Unit 307 could never have uncovered it. Ying Zhang admitted that he had died, yet had never truly fallen. He began recounting a stormy night when a mysterious man appeared and proposed a brutal pact in exchange for immortality. The condition was merciless. 10,000 soldiers had to willingly sacrifice both soul and flesh to guard the emperor for eternity. That was why tens of thousands of warriors had agreed to drink the black elixir, transforming themselves into haughty terracotta guardians beings, whose aging was frozen, but at the cost of every human sensation. The infamous purge, remembered by history as burning the books and burying the scholars alive, was, in truth, a ruthless operation to erase all traces of this secret targeting. Those who knew too much about the path leading to the underground palace. Even Crown Prince Fuzhou had to die by Li Xi's own hand, right here in this very palace. Simply, because he accidentally witnessed the truth behind his father's staged death. Li Si himself later chose suicide, preserving his loyalty and the secret Tun to death. Faced with a truth so vast that it shattered every known scientific theory, Li Qi and Unit 37 understood one thing clearly: confronting a legion that felt no pain was impossible. A secret, historic pact was forged in the deepest, most forbidden heart of the underground palace. The authorities would guarantee absolute peace for the mausoleum, establishing a fully sealed military exclusion zone to prevent all intrusion, and would continue searching for clues to true immortality to be shared with the emperor. In return, Ying Sung handed over to terracotta warriors for biological research, along with ancient manuscripts containing knowledge far ahead of their time, covering science, engineering, and spirituality buried for millennia. However, to deceive the world after the media exposure of the terracotta army, a flawless plan was put into action, swapping the cat for the crown prince. The true, living, five-colored statues were secretly moved deeper underground. In their place, lifeless ceramic replicas were hastily produced locally. Because of the limited time and mismatched materials, these replicas could not retain the vivid colors of the originals. The widely circulated explanation that the pigments oxidized within seconds of exposure to air was nothing more than a perfectly crafted lie, designed to explain the dull appearance of the museum exhibits. And so, while millions of tourists marvel at silent shards of ceramic beneath flashing cameras, directly beneath their feet, a real legion still waits patiently in the darkness, guarding an emperor who never truly died. Have you ever stood before the endless rows of terracotta warriors in a museum and felt a sudden chill crawl down your spine as you looked into their hollow eyes? If you have, then your instinct was absolutely right, but the reason behind it may leave you utterly speechless. The truth is this: what you are looking at, those gray, dry, heavily guarded statues, are merely part of a flawless illusion. A grand deception known as swapping the cat for the crown prince, after the fateful meeting between Li Qi and Ying Sung. A pact unlike anything in human history was sealed in the shadows of the underground palace. You see, when facing a legion of 6,000 warriors that could not be destroyed by conventional weapons, Unit 37 understood that negotiation was the only way to protect the modern world. The Emperor of Qin set forth two core conditions: absolute safety for the mausoleum, and that any genuine clues to true immortality discovered by Unit 307 in the future must be reported to him without exception. In return, Unit 37 demanded custody of two terracotta warriors for biological research, along with the entire trove of ancient manuscripts buried alongside the emperor. But the greatest challenge was this: how could the world be given an explanation for the disappearance of a wonder that the global media had already proclaimed? You couldn't simply close the tomb and claim that 6,000 statues had vanished into thin air. That was when the heritage substitution plan was executed swiftly, ruthlessly, and in absolute secrecy. Near Mount Li, massive ceramic workshops were quietly established to produce thousands of replicas modeled after the real warriors. Due to the extreme time pressure and the inability of modern technology to reproduce the mysterious five-colored glaze of the terracotta guardians, these replicas emerged dull and uniformly gray. To cover up this glaring difference, a perfect lie was released to the world. The story went like this: the terracotta warriors were once vividly colored, but the moment they came into contact with oxygen, the millennia-old pigments oxidized and vanished within 15 seconds. It sounded scientific. It sounded convincing. And for decades, no one questioned it. In reality, it was nothing more than a convenient excuse designed to justify the lifeless displays in museums, keep tourists coming, and conceal the existence of the true legion. Today, the Mausoleum Zone has effectively become a military exclusion area, fortified with layered defenses and secret laboratories buried deep underground. The real terracotta warriors, highly sensitive to sunlight, have been returned to the deepest levels of the underground palace, where they continue to guard Yingzhang's eternal rest. Museum experts and cultural heritage officials are fully aware of this truth. Yet, under top-level directives, they remain silent to safeguard national security and prevent interference from hostile forces. But the most valuable part of the pact was never the statues themselves. It lay in the ancient bamboo scrolls. These texts contain not only historical records, but also knowledge of engineering, science, and technology far beyond their time, some of it still beyond our ability to fully comprehend today. Qin Shihuang was not merely a military genius. He was a keeper of secrets about human existence that defy the laws of nature. And there is one final, unsettling detail that Li Kui recorded in his highest classified report. It concerns the mysterious man who delivered the elixir of immortality to the emperor. The man called himself Xing Wu, name meaning illusory fortune. No one knows where he came from or where he is now. Yet Yingzhang firmly believes that when the right moment arrives, he and his legion will one day shed their ceramic shells and return to rule the world beneath the sunlight once more. So the next time you see the terracotta warriors on television or in a history textbook, remember this: what you are looking at are only empty husks. The true legion is still there, deep beneath Mount Li, silently watching us through the cracks of time. Oxidation was never an accident. It was a velvet curtain, drawn carefully to hide an empire that never truly fell. What we know as history may be only a tiny fragment of a vast and terrifying truth, sleeping right beneath our feet. The story of Qin Shihuang and the secret of the Terracotta Army stands as a reminder that this world holds far more mysteries than science can control, that what you see is not always the truth. Thank you for watching until the very end. Please subscribe to the channel and leave your thoughts in the comments, and we'll meet again in the next episode.